CYC is a free channel, presents the Word of God for everyone. Your support will help us to continue the mission. Visit our website, cycnow.com. Even $1 will make a difference.
Hello and welcome to your program called HyperLink, where we will get together and answer your questions on a variety of teenage topics that affect both you and your parents. So if your parents are close by, tell them to come over and join you, as a lot of what we are about to say today is for them also. We left you in our previous episode talking about teen suicide. Today, however, we will discuss together the issue of teen communications. But first, let's go and see what the youth and their parents think of this topic.
Like I said before, teenagers are really hard to deal with. It's a very difficult age. They are going through a lot of things, a lot of emotions, and a lot of self-identity problems. And the one person that they cannot relate to is their parent. So effectively communicating with a teenager can be very, very hard. But the way I think it would work is a parent kind of brings their self down to the level of their teenager, relates to them in ways that they like, shows interest in their activities and their hobbies and the things that they show interest in. And I think that's the best way to get on the level of a teenager and communicate better with them and have a better relationship with them, is if you become their friend rather than their parent.
Thank you for your participations and your personal opinions. Now let's go and answer the first question.
How can I, as a parent, effectively communicate with my teenager?
I don't think it's an easy matter to communicate with our young youth, as there are many factors that affect them in our homes and their surroundings from the outside. Let's take a look at some of these points. 1. Effective communication in discipline. Using effective communication in discipline is creating and enforcing rules, limits and responsibilities. This part of parenting a youth is full of loopholes, roller coasters and trapdoors. But if you are effectively communicating with your youth, disciplining him will not be the annoyance of your existence. Here is how effective communication helps parents discipline. Using effective communication to set rules, limits and responsibilities. Here are 4 types to setting rules, limits and consequences using your effective communication skills. Be clear about your expectations for rules and limits and the consequences for misbehavior, even if you have to write them down. Don't be afraid to delegate a responsibility to your teenager. We'll say things like, "We'll work it out if it doesn't go right, but I think you can do it. Just try." Goes a long way in boosting your youth's confidence. When it comes to consequences, let your youth have a say. They will feel ownership of the mistake when they've helped set up the consequences. They bond you as a family and make you who you are as a person. This is true for your youth too. 3. Tips on using effective communication to enforce rules, limits and responsibilities. Keep your emotions in check. When your youth breaks a rule or wanders past his limits, you may become rightfully upset. Unfortunately, this can lead to yelling instead of effectively communicating your feelings. You can only be assured that you are effectively communicating with your youth if you have your emotions under control. Unconditionally loving your youth sometimes means you're the bad guy. Remember that being a parent isn't easy, but you have a worthwhile goal of producing a happy and successful adult. Keep this goal forefront in your mind while you give discipline talks the confidence they deserve. Avoid long lectures. Simply state the consequence previously agreed on and that you expect your youth will follow through with it. Respect is a two-way street. Be sure to keep your conversations respectful. Keep your thoughts to yourself around other people when you're upset. You will alienate your youth if you share their dirty laundry with neighbors or extended family. This could break down the trust your youth has in you. Learn to not criticize your youth. While his actions may have upset and worried you, you can deal with those. Criticism will only tear down your youth's self-esteem. Let's move on to our next question.
How can I communicate with my youth without arguing with him?
Learn control when arguing with your teenager. No matter what your family calls them, heated conversations, debates, or arguments, all parents will agree that they happen with more frequency and sometimes more explosively as our children grow older. This isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's really more of a normal thing for the life stage your teenager is in. The problem is that it starts before we are prepared. At the start of adolescence, our children begin to see things in shades of grey, not in black or white. You have been sitting down for them since they were born. This causes them to question you, which in turn leads to heated conversations, debates, and arguments. Before you know it, there are a lot of hurt feelings floating around. As your child grows, you too must grow. Start by accepting that your child has a need to question you and test you in order to do some of that growing. When you get angry, try to remember the word control. Change your attitudes. Begin by moderating the tone of your voice. Remember that we also teach by example. If your child sees that you can calm down when you are angry, he or she will understand that you expect him or her to behave the same way in similar situations. Observe what makes you feel angry. Don't say hello words that hurt and confuse your child. Disapprove of the behavior, not of your child. Take time to calm down before you continue to speak. Count to 10. Breathe deeply. Leave the room or go for a walk. Resolve the problem the best way you can. Once you have calmed down, look at what happened and decide how to handle it appropriately. Opt to correct and discipline your child with love without hurting them or yourself. Lashing out is not acceptable. Anger is not an excuse. When you are angry with your child, learn how to handle it in an appropriate and loving way and teach them to do the same. Let's move on to another question.
I sometimes use scare tactics with my teenager. Is this advisable or not?
One communication trap that parents get caught up in when discussing serious issues with their teens is the use of scare tactics. It is a trap because while a scare tactic seems like it should work, it certainly scares us into thinking it will. It often doesn't work at all. Even worse, it can backfire. Before you feel the need to use a scare tactics in communicating with your teen, let's look at the reasons why you shouldn't, then check out other alternatives. 1. Scare tactics simply do not work on the teens. Developmentally, teens are still getting the gist of reality. The thought that something could happen means to a teen that something will happen to someone else, but not to me. It is always easier to get a message across to your teen when you dwell in the here and now with concrete information. 2. You lose respect for the person who hurt you. So instead of opening up the lines of communication with your teen about a serious issue by using scare tactics, you've shut the door. 3. Using scare tactics undermines your credibility. This, to me, is the biggest reason to avoid using scare tactics for any issue that comes up with your teen. There are always a bigger issue around the corner. You'll need your credibility in order to keep your teen talking with you, listening to you, and caring about his or her family, guided by using appropriate communication and discipline skills. Let's go into our next question.
I find that just giving a helping ear and listen to my youth makes a big difference to them. What is your opinion?
An important skill for parents to master is active listening. When parents listen actively, they send children the message that they are important enough to have the parents' undivided attention. Many problems can be solved and even prevented when parents take the time to use active listening. Importantly, when a parent is an active listener, she is able to guide children to solve problems for themselves. Here are steps to master this listening skill. Stop what you are doing. Look at your child. Give your full attention. Listen to what is said and comment on what you think you heard. If your youth agrees that what you heard is what they said and they have asked for an answer, give one. If no question has been asked, comment that you understand. If you did not understand what was said, ask your youth to clarify what they are trying to tell you and repeat the last two steps until you do. Let's go on to our next question.
Are there certain discipline techniques that I can take while communicating with my teenager?
Parenting is not a direct science. There are no specific steps that will always produce a certain result. There are too many variables and not enough controls. Any parenting technique or skill may not work with your family's dynamic, or they may work one time but not another. Therefore, when you make a mistake in your discipline, you need to fall back and regroup. Learn how by using these following steps. 1. Drop the guilt. When you realize you've made a mistake, chalk it up to the fact that there is no parenting manual. Many parents exasperate the mistake they have made by dwelling in the guilt of it. If you tend to do this, take a deep breath and realize that you weren't made to be perfect. Go through the next 4 steps and you will feel better. 2. Apologize to your teenager. This will teach them that mistakes happen and that you respect them enough to admit you were the one who made the mistake. It will model appropriate behavior for when they make their next mistake. 3. Take some time to rethink the situation. Go over what happened and think about what you could have changed. You are ready to think through a plan of action so this problem does not occur again. Ask your youth for their input. 5. Change the behavior that caused the mistake by implementing your plan of action. While it may seem tedious at first to go through all of these steps, with practice, it will become second nature. The benefits, less stress, mutual respect, and positive modeling are worth the effort. Stay with us and let's look at our story for today. Communication skills for parents. One important listening skill to use when communicating with your teenager is using door openers as opposed to door slammers. Door openers are open-ended responses that do not convey evaluation or judgment. Door slammers are just the opposite. They convey to your teenager that you do not wish to have this discussion with them. Example of door openers. Would you like to share more about that? That's a good question. I don't know, but I'll find out. I'm interested in what you are saying. Do you know what that means? That sounds important to you. Do you want to talk about it? However, examples of door slammers said by parents too often are, "You are too young, you don't understand. If you say that again, you know the rest. That's not of your business. I don't care what your friends are doing. We'll talk about that when you need to know. That's just for boys, or that's just for girls. Why are you asking me that? You don't need to know about that. Don't come to me if you mess up." So always use the right communication skills when dealing with your youth. Anyway, this ends today's episode on teen and parent communication skills. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we are looking forward to meet you in our next episode where we will discuss the issues on teen dishonesty. So meet us next week, and don't forget to tell your friends to join you. God bless you and keep safe.